Impact investing has led to some of the largest computer companies in the world starting recycling programs. It's now one of the biggest movements in the investment world, different from ethical investing in that it funds projects and allows investors to take an activist role to change companies for the better. The founder of Impact Investing, Wayne Silby, started his first impact fund in the 80s and it's now worth in excess of $12 billion. He now spends most of his time in China, where he's grown $1 billion firm focusing on corporate social responsibility and impact investing. He's here as part of the Impact Investing Summit in Sydney. Wayne Silby, what's the difference between impact investing and ethical investing?
Well, you could either argue it's a subset, or you could say ethical is more like maybe what you shouldn't do, and impact is a lot more about positive change and how can you invest, sometimes taking risks to make social change.
Your fund, the Calvert Impact Capital, has moved around $2 billion US in investors' money into communities. What's the return on capital and what are you achieving with that money?
Oh, we pay a couple percent, but we invest at like 3.5%. For issues like microfinance, or we put money into a group that creates schools in India for like $10,000. You can have a school, pay a few rupees, and have a much quality kind of education. We also financed those little group taxi cabs in South Africa, disintermediating the financial investor. And so yes, we pay a little return, but we also charge a little bit and have this big social impact as kind of the big benefit. And another way to have a kind of a charitable impulse, but with larger amounts of money in your dollars. And we've never lost anybody's money. We've lost some of our own, but not our investors.
You started as essentially a fund manager and one of the biggest in the US. You had this moment. What was it? What made you start this?
Well, the true story is that I started one of the very early money funds in the U.S., which started to become quite successful. And also, I was a Wharton financial engineer. Donald Trump was in my class. But so we were doing very well. But I needed a break one weekend, and I went to this conference on right livelihood, which is one of the paths, the Eightfold Path in Buddhism, how to lead a good life, enlightened life. And so I'm at the conference, and I'm like, well, my claim to fame is 0.2% more than the next guy is my gravestone site. And I'm thinking, that's my legacy. I get a little, and it started me to thinking about creating a fund which reflected our generation's values. It was the late 60s, things like environment, labor issues, and so on. And South Africa also was an issue in those days. So we started Calvert Social Investment Fund, which was the first mutual fund investment company that considered these issues of social impact. And we set aside 1% of the money that we do at below market returns, which our financial authorities had never seen registered before, to accomplish issues of social justice and that kind of thing. And the fund has grown. Now it's in the billions of dollars, and this kind of investing is rapidly becoming a Me Too and throughout, at least in my country.
It has grown exponentially as a movement and as a serious alternative to your traditional form of investing. Where do you think it goes next? It's not just about putting your money somewhere that's going to do good. It's also about activism, isn't it, now?
You know, the growth really, I mean, we were around for quite a while, and the growth didn't happen, I think, until the Wall Street debacle, where people started realizing, maybe I don't think my son working at Goldman Sachs is the best thing in life. And what is it about money chasing returns that can leave us all poorer? And so really, that helped propel people, and particularly the millennials and others coming of age, and the MBA schools. I mean, a few years ago now at Harvard Business School, it wasn't the venture capital club or private equity or hedge fund club, but the social enterprise club that attracted the most students. I was in touch with one Wharton professor recently who said his social enterprise, his social impact class, had more subscribers than his normal entrepreneurial class. So again, the young people getting this interest, and then their advisors wondering about where the clients from the future are coming. And the young people affecting their family offices now as they start to take over either some of the money, they go on the board. Just asking a simple question like, what are we accomplishing here? A broader question than, you know, what is our return going to, you know, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And still, you can do pretty well having these concerns. Some people take a certain amount of their money and decide they're just going to take the risk and go for it. And if they lose some of that, it doesn't matter. But the social impact possibility is so strong that it's become a way that I think, you know, the rich people can play a role in our society by taking the risks on the new kind of business models and forms that will have these social payoffs, and the financial return might be a little speculative.
So do you think it's moved on from where it started, and it's gone into activism as well as just investing?
No, I think that it's kind of a labor of love. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not about buying.
Because the Dell example that you spoke about today.
That's an example where, as shareholders, you know, you have the managers and then the executive committee, the president who reports to the board, and the board actually reports on behalf of the shareholders. And here we are, shareholders, and in the Dell situation, we asked Dell Corporation to disclose what happens to their computers after they sell them. Well, 15 years ago, they thought this was ridiculous, and their lawyers started fighting us, and we went to the SEC. We want this on the blah, blah, blah. And then Michael Dell himself brought Calvert into his offices and said, tell me more. And he turned around and loved the idea. So Dell...
Of recycling computers.
Of having a recycling program, and that was the first post-consumer recycling program of any computer corporation. And once he did it, Apple, Compaq, all the others, HP, all fell in line. So my point is that here we are as owners of a company. We want them to make a better company in the context of a better world, a better society. And so we ask these kinds of questions, and we still do governance issues. We want them to be corporate citizens of stellar quality, and Michael Dell certainly proved he was of that type.
We've got a couple of AGMs coming up in Australia of some of our big firms. Today we've heard from a major health insurer that they're now reassessing their exposure to carbon intense investments. Last year they got completely out of tobacco. We've got a big miner also thinking about their membership of pro-coal bodies, and big banks this week as well are looking at their sustainability issues and whether they will be funding carbon intensity schemes. So is this the other side of impact investing, apart from putting money into you know, like microfinance projects and that sort of thing? It's also the activism side?
Well, actually, you know, that conversation is a little bit more, you know, broad. I mean, climate change and what's happening to the world. Impact is a little bit more, what can we do about it in terms of fostering more projects that have a renewable quality, and everything from playing with different kinds of, you know, hydrogen gas, the technologies of the future, battery storage, to you know, even how we store, and wind farms, how can we store the energy so we can use it at night. So impact investing is not, to me, buying off, you know, the Bloomberg terminal, oh, I'll just get part of the bonds of that wind farm that are kind of being traded already. It's more like kind of considered decisions, a little more venture, a little more private equity, where you have to do a little more research. You have to draw, you have to take some chance on some innovations. But innovations are what we're going to require to meet this challenge. So that's where impact investing comes into role. I mean, some people say divest. We say divest and then invest, and putting money towards solutions of the future and racking people's brains. This really is what the whole movement in communications are about.
You've now moved into China. People said that you were crazy when you went in there with a concept of impact investing and addressing corporate responsibility. You've said that you've doubled your money since you went in there.
Well, we were one of the 6 investors that got the China Environment Fund going about 12, 13 years ago. And this is a perfect example where people did say, the Chinese, they don't care about environment. All they care about is making money. And we're somehow, the way society is, they're going to. So what happened actually is we did double our money in that fund. And now that fund, China Environment Fund, is the go-to clean tech fund in China. Similarly, I started a company 11 years ago called Sintao Corporate Social Responsibility in China. And the same thing, people like, oh, they don't care about this, or stakeholders and this and that. And yet now we have 60 people around China. We do China Mobile. We do, we're the only company in China allowed to certify green bonds of issuers. So, and we did that more as just ought to be done, a labor of love, and yet now we have a business. So another example, people think we're, ahead of our time or not the reality. My latest is I'm funding a mindfulness approach in China, where we have a mindfulness center based right downtown Beijing in a little courtyard Hutong. And we have some float tanks and some guided meditations and ways that people can de-stress and get a little control of the monkey mind we have in our thoughts, all of us. Not to mention my own personal benefits of being less neurotic as a result of learning this. And in addition, there's a whole neuroscience around the neuroplasticity of the brain now and how we can change our behaviors and lead a quality life, even as we get older. Chances to redo the brain pathways. And that's fascinating what's going on in this area of neuroscience, which, in 10 years is going to be so impactful in our world. And again, this was just trying to bring more mindfulness or contribute to that phenomenon. And all at once, it's creating additional business opportunities as we work with neuroscientists and others on how our psychology can change to help benefit us to be more productive and to be more creative in our team-based companies.
Everything that you've done has taken huge risks, really, from the beginning. The risk to be different, the risk to start these funds, the risk to go into China. It takes risk.
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm no Mother Teresa. We take quantified risks. We don't bet the ship. We bet an amount of money we can afford to lose. We bet. And this is the point. This is available to everybody to take.
But how do you convince, say, high net worth family offices, the ordinary investor who may have maybe just a couple of thousand? Do they buy just ordinary shares on the share market, or do they have a look at impact investing options? How do you convince them that this is a real and quantifiable option?
Well, I'll tell you how we convince the money managers, the advisors. I say to them, do you like to have clients? And then you start to show them the millennials, the influence, the movement into impact. I mean, now Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, all the largest money managers in the world have created impact portfolios because more and more people are saying, well, what is this? What are we accomplishing here? What are we really doing? What is my money, which is an expression of who I am and what we're doing? How does this fit into the world? How is this an expression of me? So these questions, and it's just the last few years we've gone into a power curve on this. As I say, years ago, well, not that many years ago, Harvard Business School, Stanford, the social enterprise. People want to do a work with meaning and feel like they're part of a newer world. Mm-hmm. And so there's a natural human expression here. And if we can just control the risks, this is not about I'm some kind of saint or we have to be betting the ranch. No, this is about, to me, this is like making sense. How do we build the world we want to live in?
Wade Silby, it's been fantastic to have you on the program. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being here. And I want to say that Australia, there's a certain, let's just do it. There's a certain courage, a step forwardness that isn't always a part of other cultures. And So I'm optimistic that as Australia embraces this concept, you're going to see a lot of boldness come forward and things done. So it's a real pleasure to be here.